Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kurt Steinhaus, the Secretary of Education. What a beautiful day in northern New Mexico. Thank you for coming. It's an honor to be able to present a very exciting idea with you. It's called Supporting Our Teachers and Students, Staff. And we've got a number of guests here today. At first, I'd like to introduce a volunteer who is and should be honored, our president of the Santa Fe School Board, Kate Noble. Kate, where are you? And I just saw we've got a second school board member, Dr. Carmen Gonzalez. Carmen? And we're here in Santa Fe. Many of you know our school superintendent, Dr. Larry Chavez. And I don't see her, but Renee Salazar Garcia, our principal. Let's give her a big round of applause. Some of the other guests we have with you today is the Secretary of Early Childhood Care Department, Elizabeth Groginski. And somebody who's helped us work through how to make this work for state employees is the Acting Director of the State Personnel Office, Ricky Cerna. And one of the big champions in this project, it's an honor to introduce General Miguel Aguilar. General. And standing next to him are a lot of his National Guard. So let's give his National Guard members a big round of applause. We're also pleased to introduce our partners in education across New Mexico, two elected officials. Mary Parr Sanchez, NEA President. Mary? And some of you know I used to be a school superintendent just last year, and one of my third grade teachers is now the state president of AFT, Whitney Muziani Holland. Whitney? Okay, we're keeping going down the list. We've got two other guests, very important guests. Marisol Baird is a parent from here in Santa Fe, Marisol. And Mary Bissell, who's a teacher from Sioux Cleveland, a math teacher. Let's a big round of applause for math teachers. And I think that covers the guests. And with that, I would like to introduce Marisol, who will come up and share some words with you. Marisol?
My name is Marisol Baird, and I am a working mother with two children. Our son Liam is 6 and is in kindergarten here at SFPS, and our daughter Nora is 3 and attends a local high-quality child care center. We are lucky that when in school, our children are thriving. To us, early childhood education is not just a place for them to be while we are working, but a place of social development and learning with caregivers that we trust and are thankful for. Liam demonstrates the benefits of emotional resilience and high-quality early learning every day. The coronavirus pandemic has been incredibly challenging to our family. The pandemic has taken so much from us when schools and child care centers are closed. It's so much more worse. Juggling 2 young children while working full-time has proven to be the most challenging issue we have ever faced as a family. We must both work even though it is a struggle to do so. We struggle to make sure Liam is attending school virtually and doing his schoolwork. We fail to make sure that Nora has enriching activities throughout the day and doesn't spend the entire day on electronic devices. My husband and I try to split the workday, but there's meetings and other work to do. We're lucky because we both have bosses that understand our situation. I really can't imagine what it's like for parents who don't. But still, there's work to do, and most evenings my husband and I work after the children go to bed until 1 or 2 in the morning, just to try and keep up. We are exhausted, and we don't feel we are thriving because we are so exhausted. It takes a toll on the kids, too. Liam misses his friends and teachers and is not receiving the education he deserves. and not by lack of effort from his teachers. Nora asks for her teachers daily, caregivers that she sees as part of her family. Because we are so exhausted and so busy, we can't give the kids the attention they need, and emotionally they feel our stress. They act out in new and challenging ways that we believe are due to the disruptions the pandemic has caused. To us, keeping schools open is integral to our family unit to keep us thriving. Right now, we are struggling to get through each day. Children must be kept safe, but also must attend school in person, not just for their own education, but for the mental and financial health of our entire family. Thank you.
What a powerful message. Thank you very much. What are we here for? What are we talking about? Let me give you a quick overview of the program. As a school superintendent, even before COVID, I had a big need for substitute teachers. Now with COVID, we needed even more substitute teachers. Now we've got the Omicron variant, so the need for substitute teachers has increased greatly. So our incredible, smart, hard-thinking governor said, Kurt, why don't you come up with an idea? I've got one right here. Why don't we get the National Guard? Why don't we get state employees? Why don't we get volunteers across New Mexico? You stream the process, Mr. Secretary, and make it easy for people to get a substitute license. And that's what we're talking about here. We've got volunteers from state government who are going to step up to the plate and help out. And it's not just the state government employees who are going to help out as subs, it's also their partners in the office who are going to jump in and help and make sure the great work of New Mexico state government continues. We also have the National Guard. Many of them are parents and coaches and community members who saw the need, and they want to step up and help out our schools stay open by having more substitute teachers available. I have interviewed and talked to our school superintendents and our charter school leaders. The need right now is a little bit over 900 substitutes. So what are we doing about this program? We've streamlined the process. We've said to anybody that wants to be a substitute teacher, the Public Education Department will waive the fee until the end of March. We've made the application faster, and we've talked to the people who are in charge of background checks. Remember, we don't just take anybody and put them into the classroom. These are people that have passed the background checks through the FBI. They've gone through a training session on how to be a substitute teacher. And then once they get selected to go into a school, they will talk to the principal or a designee in that school, a fellow teacher, to learn the ropes of the safety measures that are necessary in that school. So that's a little bit about this program that we're talking about. And with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker who is a brand new mom. Not only is she a math teacher, but she's a brand new mom from the Rio Rancho schools, teaches at Sioux Cleveland High School, Mary Bissell. Mary?
Hello, my name is Mary Bissell, and I'm here to teach you about imaginary numbers. Just kidding. I wish. I'm here because, I'm a very important part of the village that helps raise our kids. I love being a part of that village, and I know I speak for all of my coworkers when I say that. That statement always meant a lot to me, right? It takes a village. But it never really resonated with me until I began teaching a decade ago. And now as a new mom, it resonates even more. Right now, to be here, I had to finagle trying to find a sub in a school with multiple teacher openings that require daily subs, where we don't have substitutes to cover when teachers have normal things like getting sick, having appointments, sick kids. We have classes that are just sitting in gyms. We have classes sitting in lecture halls. We have kids emailing, begging for help. And it's the hardest thing when all you're there for is the kids. I'm here because I'm really hoping that the New Mexico community will see that this is not just a Rio Rancho problem or a Santa Fe problem. It's a Taos problem, it's a Pecos problem, it's everywhere. And we really need our community to step up and help us make our village strong so we can keep our kids in school, we can keep supporting them, and we can just make sure that we are supporting our students and doing right by them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marion. When we get to the question and answer session, if you want to know about the quadratic equation, the question goes to her. It's now my honor to introduce our superintendent, brand new this year with the Santa Fe schools, and then she will introduce our governor. Larry?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Steinhaus. Appreciate that. Thank you, everyone who came out today. As a former teacher, we all know pause until the bell rings. So that was a great lesson about the classroom and how instruction takes place. Santa Fe Public Schools greatly appreciates Governor Lujan Grisham for enabling the National Guard and state employees to serve in our schools as substitutes during this unprecedented time of COVID and the spread through our community. They will be instrumental in helping us return and stay with in-person learning through the second semester. The assistants will provide coverage with staff absences, reducing the stress on our remaining staff who have taken on added responsibilities, such as recess duty, covering classes, lunch duty, bus duty. Our educators have gone above and beyond to ensure all students will be able to partake in in-person learning. It is fortifying to know that the state has our back during this crisis. Additionally, providing the support of state employees and the National Guard expands the strong ties between our district and all districts across the state regarding student and staff health and safety. Through her action today, Governor Lujan Grisham acknowledges the difficulties facing our schools, staff, and students, and reiterates the importance of in-person learning. Governor, we thank you and appreciate the support and assistance with this announcement today. State employees and National Guard, thank you for filling this critical void. Thank you.
And now it's my honor and pleasure to ask you to join me in a big round of applause to the Honorable Michelle Lujan Grisham.
As low as it will go. Oh, I may have broken it. Let's see. Yep. I'm just going to hold it if that's all right with everyone. So good afternoon. This really is very exciting. We have been, certainly with many of you here today and folks who are viewing this press conference, that government, you need to use the whole of government to support all of your priorities. And when you do that, your focus really is about the families in New Mexico. And what you heard earlier is our educators, I don't know what that bell's for, Superintendent. I did joke that the last time I was actually in the principal's office here, it wasn't for a very good reason, but I was also only 17. Parents and educators are going through a constant series of whiplash. Every single day, we're learning more about COVID. The entire country is facing incredible staffing shortages and challenges. We're asking folks to participate in vaccine strategies, testing to stay strategies. We don't want to be in a situation where schools aren't engaged fully in in-person learning. And in fact, what we know about COVID today and the pandemic about schools is with all of the COVID safe practices, which was a whole brand new thing that educators and schools had to undertake with parents and students, that not only do kids learn more effectively in that environment because they're in a relationship directly with their educator and their friends and other students and other faculty members and other folks in the public education system, But that relationship with the person in the classroom is critical. And that's before we talk about all the other challenges of the distance learning aspects that will continue, but it has been incredibly challenging. Now think about this whiplash. You heard from a parent. Monday you're open, Wednesday you're not, Friday you're open, Monday you're not, after school is open, after school is not, early morning programs are open, no they're not, school is open but childcare isn't, and it has been impossible. It is impossible. And the easiest way to deal with that, since none of us here today, although we wish we did, had the power to unilaterally, because if I did, I would, end the pandemic. What we can do is launch what we believe, because we're using government employees as part of the effort to establish a healthy number of individuals who meet the criteria and are available to be in the classroom with students for all grade levels. So that one-of-its-kind program, staff, because that's what we're talking about, support teachers and families. So we're not taking over. We are not creating a situation where we want the educators who belong in the classroom, who are accredited and trained and have a relationship. But if they have to be out because they are quarantining or isolating, or they have their own family issues, whether it's COVID or not, people actually have other issues that prevent them from being in the classroom. Let's all stand up and make it really clear that we do, Mr. Superintendent, we have your back. And to do that, the goal of state government is to streamline, to support employees, particularly think about the number of educators who are also state government employees. Not a requirement, but an added benefit. And in fact, the number of men and women in your National Guard who are also, have been, or currently are, licensed educators with experience at schools and classrooms. They exist in these other worlds. So why wouldn't we take the whole of government, pay all of the fees, waive all of the non-safety, like background checks and the trainings for students, and make it easy for state employees to step into that situation? Tomorrow, I will undergo the fingerprinting and the background requirements, and I expect that by the weekend, I will be cleared and I will be available to support a school anywhere. Certainly easier for me in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, but if somebody needs me, I will find a way to travel and to support schools at any level in the way that that school believes I can support the school. Superintendents and principals will make decisions about who is at their school. We're giving you a pool. We're not going to tell you who fits what criteria. And the same with the Guard. The Guard has been an incredible, everybody calls them, and I find myself doing that too. The assets that we have at the New Mexico National Guard, look, we're talking about people, men and women who have families here, who are committed to their state and their country, who at the very beginning of the pandemic were supporting individuals who were traveling abroad. There weren't any tests, there wasn't any support. They got them home. They literally traveled and got them home, back to New Mexico, where we could support them and make sure they have the health care that they needed. They've been delivering food and water and supplies, including sanitizer and masks, statewide. When we boasted how effective we were at the beginning of the pandemic, leading the nation in shots in arms and tests, it was the Guard who was stepping in to support us to launch initiatives where we didn't have all of the personnel necessary. Last thing about your men and women who dedicate and commit their lives and careers in this way. We do have some priorities, so we need to make sure that our school partners know this. We are not pulling any men and women who are currently shots in arms, currently helping us with testing, and are currently assisting in hospitals and healthcare clinics statewide. Right? That is as important as this effort. We have to literally have an all-hands-on-deck approach to make sure that we keep getting through this pandemic together. which is why right now I believe, and the general will correct me, we've got about 50 men and women that will be available and be part of that volunteer list. Last thing, I promise, I actually said last thing, one more last thing. They're also already accustomed to being in very remote places all over the state. So in terms of making sure that when a school in a small community, whether that's Cuba or Clayton or Cimarron or Mosquito or Melrose, that we know that we can meet that call for action. So it's all of us together. There is no issue about not following the lead. Who's in charge of schools today? Superintendents, school boards, principals. And who leads those efforts every day for them? Who do they work for? Parents. Parents make the calls. Students provide us with direction and information. We just want to be a group that's available to you. And I'm really excited about this. And then before we stand for questions, this is also a great opportunity for New Mexicans anywhere and everywhere. Please help us. Let's keep our schools safely and productively open. Let's support our educators and families. Let's make sure students continue to be our focus and priority. You can volunteer where you're not substituting in a classroom. Everyone still has to undergo background checks, and they should. And the state is standing up to make sure that we don't let fees or the part that may be unnecessary to get people screened, cleared, and safely available to superintendents across the state. So please step up. And if you want to call us about how you can do that, how we can help you, you can call the office of the governor, and we'll create a more robust, easy, I've got so many hotlines, it gets hard to keep track of them all, but you can call our office. It's 505-476-2200. And for folks who still really need a toll-free line, you can call 833-520-0020, 833-520-0020, and we'll make sure that our communication staff get that out. This is a call to action by every New Mexican who can help make a difference to keep our schools, our early childhood education programs, and our child care centers open so that students and children and families have the support that they need while we all keep working and conquering COVID together. Thank you, everyone. We stand for questions. All right. Yes. I saw him. I saw him give you a note. He passed it right over. Right. Well, it's not a deployment because I have other resources, but I want to use them all. And I know that the Guard in particular is really, really a useful resource for New Mexico, particularly in those areas that we talked about. And because this emergency, and it is, can be equally shared by folks who are not part of the Guard. So it's about using every government employee that we can, and to get to a goal to 500. And I also just, a shout out to General Aguilar and the men and women. These are folks who are quickly adaptable because of their specific training to meet the needs in any community issue, irrespective of what it is. And I want all of us to, I don't mind reminding us that we owe them a great deal of gratitude, from wildfires to getting propane and heat into people's homes in northern New Mexico for the last storm, to getting shots in arms, getting us tested, and making sure that schools can stay open. But the vast majority of volunteers here are expected to be non-men and women in the Guard, just given all the things that they have to do. And I bet a question is coming. Remember, schools decide. You look at the list, you know where they're from. Superintendent, if you don't call me up for Santa Fe, I'll know it was you. They know what staffing structures they need in their schools. I don't need to tell them how to do that. They are perfectly equipped. They'll make those decisions, and they can make decisions. I know that's been a question. What will they wear? Whatever you want them to wear. And this is just about being inside schools in a way that supports students. It isn't as if we have a focused, only the Guard can provide that. I can't ask state employees without this training to go into a fire, as an example. So it's a very different way for us to utilize every state resource, and public education is a priority. I'm really proud of their efforts to date. Thank you. Next question. Yes?
Governor, how long is it going to take to certify the Guard members to get them out there? And with a lot of the struggles with Omicron going on right now, is it too late?
I don't think it's ever too late. Look, we were down substitute teachers well before COVID. And we're down educators. It's a national shortage. The number of educators that are 60 and 70 in this state, all across the country, that stay in the profession. We just haven't been encouraging young people to think about this as both their career choice and vocation. And we've got all kinds of things inside public education geared to do that. And I feel really good. In our first year, 2019, we saw one of the single largest improvements in addressing teacher staffing shortages in the state. COVID did us no favors in that regard. So it's not too late. It takes 2 days. That means that schools that have no idea what they're going to do, or childcare, on Monday, will have access to a new pool of individuals. It takes us 2 days to get through the background check and the training, so that we are readily available. And that's why I know it's credible to ask the general public to do the same. And you know what this means? This means that parents have stability and they can keep going to work. And so it's also a real message to other employers that if we do this together, we're going to create, stability for your own business and your own workers and families. Well, we don't have really how do I say this? So a PCR test, by definition, although we can get them done in 4 hours, aren't really rapid tests. And the rapid tests are antigen tests. And so you've heard of many of the popular brands like Binax now and iHealth, and there are many. What we did early in the pandemic is, before Omicron, is create a system with schools. Schools had available contractors that they determined would best meet the needs of their schools for testing. And there's a national shortage. That's a fact. Now, we were able to work with the White House and secure 1 million tests. We've already ordered 1 million more. As you know, 400,000 are being distributed. Schools are a priority. And the other 600,000 will be distributed. Where we have testing companies that have their own staffing shortages, and we understand, except we always had other testing companies in the wings. So our message to schools and superintendents, you need to bring in the second group until they're staffed up. We can't have a delay in testing. And my job is going to be to continue to secure tests so that they are readily available. The only caveat to that is that when we were so successful at getting PCR tests, so we would run out of literally swabs and enzymes and staff in labs. We had a finite number of labs who could do that. If I can take you back a year and a half ago. But a lot of states weren't involved in testing. They just sort of discarded that as an effective tool. So that puts states like New Mexico, who are very assertive and very clear that but pre-vaccines and during any surge, testing is critical. You have to know where it is, you have to know what it's doing, and we have to have a plan like this one to support the staff that have to be isolated and or quarantined. Now every state is competing for tests. That's put a real strain, but I got 1 million. I feel pretty confident I'm going to get 1 million more. And so that's going to be the focus of my office and the Department of Health. Yes?
Question, are the substitutes going to be also getting 7% raises?
So here's what I think. I'm not going to get paid to substitute teach. And I don't know how to say this, neither are you. But we do have a suggestion to superintendents. You know, we ought to make sure that our subs are involved in the budgets and we're raising salaries. And while we figure that out in the legislature, as we expect to get 7% raises for educators in public education, minimum, we should be thinking about what we do about substitutes and the money that you save by using us, not in lieu, it's not a competition with everybody else who's there, but that might be a way to give a little bump in your substitute teachers. Look, and you raise a really important point. It's not as if we don't have substitute teachers who have gone through the training and the process and are there. We just don't have enough. And this is a really important place in the press conference for me to also give them my personal gratitude for standing up and being available and traveling across districts and across communities to be available to their schools and to students and their parents, and we are grateful. And so I don't see why we can't really work on that. They're not actually identified in that aspect because there's a different funding level for subs. But I think that we could work something out. What do you think, Superintendent? He's thumbs up to that. Thumbs up to that. Yes. Right now, I'm asking for 500 now, because to the point, if it's all the way to March, schools don't have enough options. They just don't. So we want this to be, we're going to keep building, we're going to be available, and I do think that given the current information, caveat is, the more information we have about this virus and about this particular variant, then we get different guidance and information available to us from scientists and researchers, not just at the CDC, here in New Mexico as well. Our own labs provide that. Sort of, you know, they look forward, they're very clear about where we are today, and they model. So I have access, and I look at it every day, sort of where we think we are or aren't, and then we evaluate that across data, not just in the country, but around the globe. We are hopeful, even with the high number of cases, which no one should be happy about that. It's incredibly challenging, and too many people will get sick, and far too many people will still go to the hospital. And we will lose New Mexicans. And it breaks me every single day. But we are hopeful that as we're seeing now in some states that had Omicron first around the country, that in March, we should be able to take a look at a variety of the things that we're doing related to COVID and make some positive, productive, forward strides that lessen some of the burdens related to managing it today. I do have a commitment for you, though. We still have a long way to go for educator shortages, and if we do the job I think we're going to do, and if schools continue to need us, we will expand or continue for as long as we can, making the focus of our current efforts supporting students and their families. Couple more. We talked about that a ton, about incentivizing the program. And the initial incentive is let's support our families in the state. I don't think that we do, but I am open to what really does make the difference. We want to be fair, and we want to be even-handed, and we certainly don't want to create a situation where we're competing with the men and women who are currently substitute teachers. So there are some issues that, require a lot more attention by the education experts who are standing behind me. But right now, as many ideas on the table that make sure we're successful should stay at least on the table for discussion. Today, we've determined that we have enough state employees with the volunteer support of the Guard to get to that 500 fairly readily, and that's just looking at key departments like the Public Education Department and the Veterans Department and so many others who are in a situation where they're a little bit more fluid in COVID to provide this kind of support. I want schools to make the decision about what's right. Look, we have had some folks certainly not complain at all, but alert us. There may be a school or a school district where that just doesn't feel as comfortable as it might. It's not for me to judge those families or those communities in any context. Every child should feel safe and secure and supported. There are no politics here at all, which is why the Guard is prepared to dress in casual clothes or do whatever a school thinks is best, and they're going to listen to their parents and their school boards and their students. And so this is all just about making sure we have a presence in the classroom and nothing else. It's not a recruitment tool for any state department or the Guard or anybody else. It's just a vehicle to make sure that schools can stay open. Yep. Well, let's talk about 4 years ago. I mean, certainly right before I was elected, we were in a pretty anemic, and that's the best description you can have of what the state of New Mexico's economic efforts and issues and budget was. So it meant a lot of these solutions, a moonshot in education, respecting educators, didn't have the right tools or resources. Let's also not forget that educators, and they remind me in a productive way, and I am grateful, that high-stakes testing and the evaluation process that the state undertook was incredibly disrespectful and punitive, and it did us no favors, even if you had more equality in the classroom in terms of pay and resources and training and professional development. Today, I'm quite proud of our economic successes. We got support in 19. We moved away from those disrespectful, harmful issues inside the classroom and targeted, I mean, that's the right word, at educators. When you tell educators you don't really want them to do the work that they're trained to do, it makes it hard to tell them that they should stay. And then we had COVID. So I'm very, very optimistic about what the legislature is going to do in this second, third, and fourth round. We've had education investments a priority every single session, and we're going to continue to do that. So I'm feeling really good about that, and it'll take us a while, to your point. And I'm going to go over here real quick. We are not going to solve the educational shortage that exists in this state and around the country overnight. And if anyone is assuming that this initiative, in this moment today, is the vehicle to do that, it isn't. We need trained, completely properly educated, supported, including, they get class time in the classroom as part of that effort and licensure. We have to keep investing in that pipeline. We are, and thank you for allowing me to remind the legislature that we want all of those resources available to us to give to the school districts to deploy productively and meaningfully in their classrooms. All right, Dan, I'm going to give you one last shot since everybody took all your questions. You shouldn't have given up so early. We don't have the full, because we don't know how many folks are going to be in the classroom, but there will be an impact, and we're fully prepared to absorb that. And it raises another question, Dan, which is, it's why I can't put 1,000 men and women in the Guard or 1,000 and shut down an entire department. Everyone is going to have to use their budget, their resources, to make sure that we can do this. And it's also, I hope, and again, I don't know, but we're also anticipating that this all-out effort, all of government, matched with, I hope, the same enthusiasm, right, by parents who can, and businesses and employees around the state who can and will, that in March, we're able to then back off a little bit of that, but not until the superintendents, principals, educators, parents, and students tell us that they don't need us anymore. That's the key here. So if it was a year-long issue, Dan, or 2 or 3, that would cause some real issues for us in terms of the resource management. But because it's short-term, quick turnaround, we feel very confident that we can just make that happen ethically, legally, and properly. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the schools who have done an amazing job. Thank you to the parents who called and asked us for support. And thanks to all of you for standing up for your state. You're remarkable. Bye-bye.